All right, this is episode 16, recording as of April 20th, 2025. Happy Easter and happy 420. That's an interesting um, alignment of dates. Didn't really have time to record last week, but in thinking about it, preparing for this morning's recording, I had a realization that, I started this video series with the intent to create a record of things that we've been doing and to help me remember things that I find interesting. But the what I've found is that maybe I just started it at the worst possible time because with the move and with the new baby, we're not doing anything. Like in the past 2 weeks, our weekends have been as light as they can possibly be, in preparation for house showings, and so I find that when I sit down to record these things, I'm like, well, what has happened? I'm like, oh, not a whole lot, but I guess I'll give a few updates. So, new coworker is starting at work. I was really upset when I found out who she was, mostly just because I'm so sick of working with people who are what 20 or 30 years older than me. And it's especially weird now because she is technically like below me on the hierarchy. And she gets very easily confused when I try to explain how to do certain stuff on the computer. And so I'm like, it's not like I can even just say, hey, take this document, separate it out into a bunch of documents and save them to the folders. Because I'd have to sit there with her and show her how to do the print, how to convert, So I'm just like, God damn it. Like, couldn't I have just gotten some, plucky 22-year-old who has only maybe had a job as a teller or a personal banker before, but no, alas, not. So it is what it is, I suppose. But beyond that, I can't really think of a whole lot of things that have happened. Work is finally calming down, I suppose, now that my other coworker is back in office, but home life is pretty uneventful. Gabby and I started playing a new video game called Schedule 1, and we've been really addicted to that. But other than that, we're just sort of trying to get into a routine, trying to get the house sold. At this point, it's been on the market since mid-February, so it's been 2 months, and this is our third weekend in a row without any showings. So I'm kind of like, what are we doing here? We got to get this figured out. But hopefully more updates to come on that. I guess I'll talk about the big thing that happened, which is that I finally told my dad that he couldn't be in Vinny's life if he was going to continue doing the things he's doing with his gender transition, and that sucked, quite frankly. I didn't enjoy that. But I don't know. I didn't know what else to do at that point. He had officially announced his name change. I don't know, like back in January, February. I can't remember. It doesn't matter either. But he had officially announced his name change and was like, I never was. And then he said his name, and I was like, well, if you were never that person, then where's my dad? And ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think there's a compelling argument that being transgender is anything other than, at best, a severe delusion regarding the nature of life, and at worst, a desire to participate in a sexual fetish in public. And I hate that that's what has consumed my dad, but I won't let that infect my daughter. The The studies have been done at this point. It's very clear that a lot of the transgender movement was part of a social contagion. A lot of young girls, especially, identify that way because it was cool and it got them attention. And the problem is that the ones who doubled down on it and were like, no, 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 this is who I am, enter into a group of people whose suicide rate is 50%. And I know my daughter's going to encounter those people in life, but having one in her home, every day, every year, every couple of weeks, I think that's different. And so I elected to tell him that would be over, that he can't do that and still be a part of our lives. And he never responded. It's been almost a week now, and I haven't heard from him. He did see fit to post about it on Facebook, which I think, all right, well, hey, if you wanted me to think you're a woman acting like an absolute coward and not responding or defending yourself, that was certainly the right way to do it. Good job. Because I'm a firm believer that you need to be able to defend the things you do in life, and not everything, needs to be defended. I don't need to justify why I spend so much time D&D and playing D&D. It brings me a lot of joy, and at the end of the day, it's not damaging, and playing D&D is just as much a disconnection from reality as watching a movie or reading a book. It's just a little bit more cooperative. So there is a difference, though, when you start saying, well, not only do I believe that this thing that is objectively untrue is true, but you need to participate in it and affirm me in that belief. It'd be no different if I started going out in public and started telling people, you need to treat me like I'm a level 15 wizard specializing in evocation, and when I look at you and I, wave my wand in your direction, if you don't act like a fireball just exploded right next to you, even though that objectively did not happen, you're a bigot, and you deserve to be treated as one. So, and the fact that he didn't even try to defend why he is doing this tells me that he can't defend it, which just tells me he's going off of his own, what he feels in his soul. And I'm sorry, that just that's not good enough. That's not a good enough reason to upheave your family. And, if my wife came to me, or God forbid, if my daughter came to me in 20, 30, in 20, 25 years and said, Dad, your obsession with D&D and your desire to inject it into every single conversation is ruining our relationship. I need you to stop. I'd like to think that I'd have the willpower to do that, I'd hope it wasn't a problem in the first place, but certainly I'd like to think that I would have the willpower to stop at that point. And the fact that he decided not to tells me he's not really committed to being part of the family. He wants to be part of the family on his terms. And I know we all want to be part of something on our own terms, but I guess that's just the way it's going to be. So, for me, it feels more like my dad died back in 2020 when this first started. I don't really have any positive memories with him after that. And my instinct is to be angry. I want to be angry with him for choosing his fetish over being a part of his granddaughter's life. But I can't control him, and I'm not going to try. But being angry makes me want to lash out. I want to start telling people that he's dead, but I know that's not the right thing to do. So I think it's just better that when people ask about him, I'll just say, oh, he's not around anymore, and try to say it in as somber a voice I can, and maybe that will give people the impression that he's dead. It just hit me how crazy it is that I'm even talking about something like this. If you had asked me about this 5-10 years ago, man, Never would have thought we'd be here. But, yep, so, alas, I don't know, I don't really want to title this video, but it's got to have some kind of title, so I'll have to think about that in the next 15-20 minutes. So, anyway, I'll be back hopefully next week. Thanks. Bye.